Assalamu alaikum, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, ahlan wa sahlan. If you have been a long time subscriber, thank you so much for staying this long. And in today's video, it is actually a video request from a comment made on, sorry I'm looking to find it, comment made on the Why We Homeschool video. So the request is, it would be great to hear about your own homeschooling journey all the way through college. That is amazing. What did you love about it? What didn't you love about it? Any regrets about being homeschooled? So before jumping into answering that question, I would like to say that I'm home. It's a busy day today, so you may hear my kids in the background, you may hear my family in the background. Someone might knock at the door, I don't know. You may hear the washing machine stop. You may hear something. So it's just life, but I do want to get this recording out, or this video out, so that I can answer these questions. And I've made some notes. Yes, I am very old-fashioned. I have my pencil and paper here instead of doing everything on the phone. I have some old-fashioned ways about me. So let's see, to answer this question, or to make a video regarding my homeschooling experience, as many of you may know already, or perhaps some of you don't know because you may be new here, I was homeschooled and I homeschool my children. So I was homeschooled my whole life, and now I homeschool my children. And this video is about my homeschooling experience. Now that I've said that 100 times, let's get started. So being homeschooled my entire life, basically, I'm just looking at my notes here so I can not make this video entirely too long, but basically the way that I grew up was probably unconventional. So I want to say about 2-3 years after I was born, my parents moved to a rural area where at that time the community established like a smaller village in different states or different areas. So basically my parents, they came from New York originally, and they traveled across America and until they finally settled, or well, for that time they were settled, and before deciding to move again, and you know, just being pioneers of new land, new property. So what happened is my parents, along with some of their companions and their companions' children, who would become my friends, my playmates, things like that in this village, we were all Muslim. So although we had non-Muslim neighbors who lived right on the same property, the only thing, you know, separating our properties were either a picket fence, a barbed wire fence, a, you know, maybe a horse corral, things like that. Because we lived in the country, we were around animals and farmers and all of that. So how do I put this? Everyone around me, basically, because we were a small village, there were probably about 10 Muslim families, everyone homeschooled their children. So they would homeschool them up till a certain age, and then, or a certain grade I should say, and then like during the last year of their homeschooling at this time, the only thing available for them to get an accredited high school diploma or GED or something like that, or high school diploma equivalent, would be to send them to an adult education class. That was the only thing available at the time. So, excuse me, many of the people I know, they grew up being homeschooled, and then they went on for their last year to the adult ed, where they received their high school diploma or their GED, whichever one they applied for, they received it, alhamdulillah. So homeschooling was normal for us. And what's funny is, although we knew the kids next door on both sides of our property, they attended public school, although we knew they attended it, I personally never had the desire to attend public school. It just didn't, it didn't bother me that I was homeschooled, because what they call, today they call it a homeschool co-op or something like that. We did something similar where like my neighbor's mom was, on some days, was my teacher. And my own mother was always my teacher. Like, even if I only had my mother all morning and then had to go to the neighbor's house, I don't know, let's say every other afternoon, every other day during the afternoon, you know, we swapped. So like the neighbor's kids would come to our house to learn certain subjects. We'd go to their house to learn certain subjects. And like I said, it was a good, I want to say 7 to 10 families who participated or did this. And we had all subjects, including home economics and things like that. So basically, although I learned to sew from my parents, I also learned sewing and baking from the neighbor, who, she actually didn't have any children our age, but she still cooperated because it was a small village, you know, of Muslims, children. And basically at that time it was really popular for, you know, that saying or that phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. Well, that is exactly what was happening with us. So we were pretty, this was the norm. We were okay with having, you know, going to our neighbor's house for just learning basic studies, you know. Then we had Islamic studies, we had Arabic studies, learning to speak Arabic, learning to pray and salat and things like that. We would call them uncles and aunties. So basically some of the elders, they would, whoever was more knowledgeable, for example, in how to read Holy Quran, for example, they would teach the Holy Quran class. And although I can probably say that my parents were extraordinary, because my mother could teach, I want to say, almost every subject that all of the teachers taught. There was one lady who taught math very well, and although I didn't attend her classes, my sister attended her classes. And my mother could teach Arabic and like how to read Arabic and that subject. But we also learned from one of the uncles, and he had a method that was really, like, it really stuck with you. And my mother would basically reinforce his method once we got home. So we had homework from him, and my mother, like, this was one of her strong points anyway. So she would teach us, and then we'd go back to his class, and, you know, we did really well in his class with the Arabic and the Holy Quran and things like that. And then we'd go to another class for, let's say, spelling, reading comprehension, things like that. We would go to different homes, but we also had it at our home first, and then we would split it up throughout the days. However the adults and the elders, however they worked out the schedule, it really worked out throughout the week for us. We had field trips, we had all sorts of classes. And what's funny is we never actually got in trouble, like boys and girls mixing and things like that. It was really like a family, you know. And it's funny that a lot of the trouble that came along was really like stories that we heard when we went to the neighbor's house, because we were actually allowed to go to our neighbors, even though they weren't Muslim. We were allowed to go over there. Our parents didn't really stop us from hanging out at a non-Muslim's house who had children our age and things like that. I want to say they really trusted us. So when we went to their homes, that's where we heard a lot of stories and things that we wouldn't have been exposed to had we stayed, I want to say, sheltered within the confines of the community there, the little village there. But excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, so please pardon me if I'm clearing my throat, you know, unconscious or subconsciously, not even hearing myself or wiping my nose. Please forgive me, excuse me. So where was I? We would go to the neighbor's house and hang out or whatever, because it's just, you know, they're girls our age. They may have had cousins or brothers or, you know, males, but we knew better. So we didn't actually, intermingle in a way that was haram. So we would hear their stories and learn new things that we probably were old enough to understand but didn't really have exposure to in our own homes. just because it was haram. So you stay away from those things. Haram is forbidden to us. So I do remember finding out that, I was about to name her. One of the ladies, she was, one of the girls actually, she was about, I want to say 14 or 15, I'm trying to remember. Anyway, she wasn't Muslim, but she was expelled from school. She went to public school. She was expelled from school because she ended up pregnant. So that kind of thing was like a huge no-no to us. So we learned about that through, because for us it's like you have to be married before you can conceive a child, or before you do those acts, commit those acts or anything like that. So we did learn about those things because of our non-Muslim neighbors and their stories. And then I do remember things like Jerry got, I think his leg ended up broken because he was like playing in the pig pen. Our neighbors had pigs, and he was running around in the mud playing in the pig pen and ended up breaking his leg. And Amanda was one time feeding their pigs and ended up slipping in the mud and breaking her arm. So we had staunchly contrasting different lives and lifestyles. Like they were in public school, which we did not attend. They had pigs, which was made forbidden for us to have. I do remember when we would go to their homes, we had to like wash our clothes after getting home because it smelled like cigarettes, things like that, which we didn't grow up smoking in our home. Our parents didn't smoke, things like that. The reason why we actually moved into the country life. Okay, I'm gonna try that again. The reason why we moved from that city lifestyle into the country lifestyle was to get away from bad influences, but our parents didn't want us to be totally under a rock. So they allowed us to enjoy or to have company and such, with our neighbors. It wasn't just, secluded and no one was allowed in or we weren't allowed out. It wasn't like that at all. But we were homeschooled, so that's what made the biggest difference. The influence that we had at such a young age made a huge difference between us and our neighbors. I knew I was going to get off topic. Now I'm going into the neighbors for too long. The next thing, after growing up in the village, so after a while, our parents started putting, how do I put this? So our parents were looking for an alternative. Instead of putting our older siblings in, I think it was called Franklin at that time, Franklin Adult Ed or something like that. So what ended up happening was that some of the young ladies were attending Franklin. They, like I said earlier, they would go up to about 11th grade before they put them in Franklin, or in the adult ed school, which is a public school. And some of the young ladies would start letting slip their hijab. They would wear the front of their hair out, and they had all their baby hair laid and all this. They would wear their earrings out, like all their jewelry and their adornments and things like that, which that's really not the lifestyle that our parents were trying to bring us up in. They were actually trying to keep that gaudy, glamorous, I want to say no good for nothing lifestyle, because it doesn't benefit anyone to have that, I want to say that gaudy, that, where you have to show all of your skin and all of your jewelry and all of your hair and all of that. For an Islamic lifestyle, that's not really ideal. I'm trying to put it in the, the best way without being so insulting, but it's not an ideal way of life in Islam. So once my parents anyway started noticing some of the young ladies doing that, they started looking for alternatives, because these young ladies would even wear backwards jeans, because at that time crisscross was popular. It's the wiggity 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 back, however that goes. So anyway, Daddy Mac and all of that, they were popular back then. So some of the young ladies started following that way when they went out to the public schools. They, not to say it was introduced to them there, but they really showed it off there, and they would even try to change their clothes back when it was time for the parents to come and pick them up. I remember one young lady had on these fake nails, and when my mother looked, she double took at her because she has on these long fake, and we all knew they weren't hers. So one of the things with the fake nails is, how are you making wudu with that on? Or, some people might say, well, I don't have to make wudu this week or whatever. But then the next question is, well, in Islam, our whole way of life is clearing our mind and preparing for the afterlife. So if you were to pass away and we can only use water to wash your body, how are we taking these fake nails off? So without going all the way in, I'll just say there was a certain understanding, and fake nails was, to wear those glued on nails was just not our way of life. So I remember my mother picking this young lady up from school one day, because we used to carpool, and I remember my mother asking her, "Are those your nails?" And she said, "They're mine, I bought them." And she said, "Oh, come on, like, not only are you bumping a ride off of me, but you are being a smart aleck, and this isn't our way of life." You know what I mean? So anyway, long story short, my mother was noticing some influences that she didn't want to have in her household. So she started looking into alternate ways for us to graduate high school. At that time, online high school was brand new. Like, it didn't exist, I don't think, or she didn't know anything about it when she put my older sisters in that public school environment for their last year of school. But she became more aware of it towards the last 3 of her children. We all graduated online because my mother had searched and finally discovered the online school was available in our area, which was a lifesaver to her, because she didn't want us to follow in that same path and start removing our veils or our hijab or wearing the fake nails and wearing the backwards pants and trying to copy off the latest fads and fashions. She wanted us to stay focused, and I'm very grateful for that, because I see where those people are now, and I'd rather be where I am than where they are. I'll just leave it at that. So moving on. So we found an online school, and at that time the internet, everything was so new to us. We were so young, and just like I said from the beginning, being pioneers and living on that land, that property, that space, it was a rough start. So we were doing groundbreaking work for that, physically, literally groundbreaking work. My father had to dig the well and things like that, like literally doing groundbreaking work. And we didn't have the means to just get things at our fingertips, but how there's a saying that goes, what you seek is seeking you. My mother was searching far and wide to find an alternative for us to graduate high school and complete our homeschooling journey. So alhamdulillah, she found an online school, and then we needed internet in order to do it online. We always made trips to the library, but we needed internet in order to study every day, at home, to complete high school. So with this high school program, it starts you at 9th grade. You have to be in 9th grade before you can enter. And long story short, we ended up getting internet with that slow dial-up connection, the internet sound that, when you plug a landline in. Yeah, so then I'm losing my train of thought here. So then we graduated, alhamdulillah, from 4 years of taking this course, excuse me, of taking the online course, 4 years of taking the online courses, and we graduated. Allah be thanked. And that happened for my sister just above me, myself, and my sister just or younger than me. I was going to say beneath. My sister who is younger than me, and my sister who is just older than me. So for the 3 of us, we graduated from that online school. And I remember my peers, some of my peers, was 3 of them at that time, who had graduated as well, but they did not know that I graduated because I wanted to surprise my mother. I didn't tell her that, you know, I didn't tell her I was graduating because I'm trying to remember exactly why. I wanted her to be surprised. I think we had either a family dinner coming up, something like that. I just remember my whole family was there. But before that, they had, like, I remember the community having like a graduation celebration or something like that for 3 other students who had graduated, and they were my age. They were my peers. I'm still in touch with them today. So they graduated, and I never said anything about my own graduation. And the following week, because I wanted it to be, I don't know, I've always thought like this. I've always been a trailblazer. I've always wanted to do my own unique thing. And you know, in life sometimes you can, and other things you can't control, but whatever I could control, I would try to take full advantage. Like, okay, this is how I want it done, so I'm going to try to do this. And what ended up happening is we had a dinner, a family dinner, and I remember I received my diploma, and I put it in a frame. I went and bought my own frame, and I wrapped it like a gift, and I gave it to my mother on that dinner, at that dinner. And as she's opening it, she's like, what could this be? And everyone's like, you know, what is this? What could this be? And she thought it was going to be like a picture of Ismaillah or some kind of Arabic calligraphy or something along those lines. And when she opened it, I remember she kind of peeled the paper back, and I remember her expression. I'm going to see if I can find the pictures. I'm not sure if I have them on me, or my older sister might have them at her house. Not sure. So anyway, I hope I can find the pictures. But I remember her opening it, and she kind of just dropped her head down. Like, it was the best reaction ever, because it brought her to tears, because just the week before, she quietly sat in that audience while 3 of my peers were graduating, and she couldn't say that her daughter graduated too. So I do remember it was like such a joyful moment, because I wanted to surprise her, and it worked out perfectly. I just remember it being so nice, and graduating from high school, and I was homeschooled my whole life. I never went to the Franklin Adult Ed building. I stayed home, you know, and even though I had so much exposure, like we had so much exposure. We went on outings and field trips and all sorts of things. I remember we were riding the train. My parents weren't there. Excuse me. It was a Big Brothers Big Sisters of America club. And there was this boy on there being really, when I say racist, he was being so racist, and we were all kids. I mean, I remember, I think we were in 7th grade or something, and he was being terrible. And I remember calling him, I said, I snapped back at him. I don't even want to repeat what I said to him. It wasn't profanity, but I snapped back at him. And the big brother who was sitting there did not really help. He's like, ha ha ha. He kind of laughed it off, because I guess he didn't expect this little hijabi girl to come back so hard at the boy he was literally calling us names, like literally calling us names that I don't want to repeat. And the man, he's supposed to be a big brother, because so anyway, my camera keeps shutting off, which is probably because I'm ranting now, like I'm going way too long. Anyway, I remember we had a lot of exposure. We had different outings, and we had different things and clubs and stuff that we attended, you know, as homeschooling groups, as just for fun, just because our town was doing it. I remember participating in the parade and things like that. But this moment of graduating was just so special for us, because, you know, my mother worked hard to educate us. She even helped educate children in, you know, the area, in the neighborhood. I remember her tutoring other kids, like tutoring kids who were not even from our community. They weren't even Muslim. They weren't, I don't know what they were, honestly. But she even sold, I remember when my mother sold encyclopedias and Britannicas and childhood, what is it called? Childcraft. It's, you know, books and volumes of books and books and books. And my mother was always about books and libraries. So this moment was like golden for us. So yeah, that was basically high school, or homeschool in a nutshell. I think that was a nutshell. I don't know how long this video is yet. I don't have the timestamp on here. Let's see. Oh, did I regret anything about it? The only thing I remember regretting was, and this may be true to a lot of homeschoolers, is that when I finally did go on to a college campus, because I was going to apply at a college, it was a university actually, I was very nervous and I didn't really comprehend what, like, it was like, almost like, I want to say, these aren't the right words, but these are the first words that come to mind. I felt like I left home for the first time. Although I had been out of my house before, in fact, I had been to different countries without my parents before. And that was, you know, an experience, it's just, that's a lifetime experience. But I felt like it was the first time I was ever going away from home. And it didn't matter that I went to another country without my parents. It didn't matter that I traveled places without my parents. I don't know why, but going into that university to take the test, the entry exam, that's the only regret I have, honestly, is I felt like I didn't understand when I was reading. I felt like my reading comprehension, I don't know, I felt like I needed a crutch. I didn't really understand after taking the exam. I didn't understand where I placed, and I don't know why. Maybe it's because the reasons behind, maybe I was just so young. Maybe it was the reason behind why I planned on attending that university. So long story short, my parents had gotten me engaged to this guy and they wanted me to marry him. And I was going to that university because that's the one he was going to. So they had this plan that we would go to this university together. And I think at that time I was trying to figure out, like, do I want to do this? Is this my idea or is this their idea? Am I trying to live someone else's dream? Am I applying what they want for their lives to my life? I feel like I wasn't in the headspace for taking that exam, and that's probably the biggest regret I have when it comes to schooling and homeschooling, things like that. I feel like I want to remember that in a good way, but I don't have any good feelings or memories about going in there to take that exam. And I remember at that time, she was my future mother-in-law to be. She asked me when I came back out, she and my mother were waiting on the bench under a tree. It was such a beautiful setting. And she asked me, so how do you think you did? And I was kind of spaced. And I don't like that. I wish I could have answered her. I wish I could have had confidence, and I didn't have it. I just didn't have it. So that would probably be my biggest regret, if that's, you know, if that applies. I remember at one point when I was ready to go back to school, okay, so once I graduated high school, 3 years had passed, and I got married. So I was 20. Yeah, I was 20 when I got married, because I graduated, I was 17. Yeah. And I wanted to go back to school because thankfully my sheikh, the same one who instructed or basically came up with this idea for us to move out into the country, he further had some, I want to say further instructions, like, you know, complete your studies, you graduated high school, this is great, now go on to, you know, once you get married, go on to university, or, you know, further your education. So after I got married, I wanted to continue going to school, but I was in a place where I didn't really have that option. So I struggled with trying to find my footing, and I just set my mind to, I said, you know what, if my sheikh told me to go to school, I am going to school, I can do it. But I didn't know how to at the time. It was just a place in my life, and my family was in a certain place, and our heads weren't in the same place, you know. So I was kind of stuck, but determined to get out of that rut. So I applied for an online education, and I was already familiar with the online system just because I had graduated from an online school. And I received my diploma, what was it, 3 years later? was I 23 when I received my diploma? I can't remember. I would have to look back at the dates, honestly. I'm not in that spot right now. Sounds crazy. So I received a diploma from that online school, and then what was it? You're fine. I already warned them that there might be background noise. But you need me? Oh. So anyway, so it must have been, I'm trying to remember. I think I may have had 2 children by the time I applied again. I'm trying to remember. I'm so sorry. I think I had 2 children already by the time I applied at an online university for early childhood education, because I wanted to teach my child how to speak clearly. I wanted to be his, what is it called? I wanted to be his speech therapist, and I knew I had to go to school in order to do that. And because I had some rough experiences, you can probably go back to one of my videos, what was it, my Ramadan reflection video. It was probably somewhere in that time that I had a really rough time in my life, and I was trying to figure out how am I going to educate him or teach him how to talk clearly, because my son he started talking late. He was about 3 and a half by the time he could form words, and he was teased about it. Like when people give those backhanded, underhanded little, snarky remarks, that is called teasing. I don't care how you spin it. So I wanted to be his advocate. You know what I mean? I wanted to advocate for kids like him. So I had to go to this online university because I was already familiar with the online system. I am a stay-at-home mom and wife, and I wanted to be more than just your common or your standard or your typical stay-at-home mom. So I wanted to go to school to advocate for my child. And at that time, I think I actually had 2 children, but my other child spoke clearly and quickly and very well, so it didn't really apply to him. But that's why I went to online university, and it was all really simple for me. However, there's a catch to it. I did not finish because I ended up expecting my 3rd child, and I was so sick all of the time with my 3rd child that I ended up falling behind. Yeah, sad story, but it's true. So I did complete high school online. I completed, it was like an online college, and I received a diploma, and then I attended an online university and did not graduate. Not to say I won't go back to school, but I'm in a place right now where I'm in a place now where I'm just finding a good flow with educating my children, and then as soon as I get to a place where I am comfortable with all of us being enrolled in school, I'd like to apply again, inshallah, and attend an online university and graduate. And I really hope I can do that, because I will vlog that for you all if I get to walk across that stage and throw my cap. So alhamdulillah, I can honestly say I know a lot of people, due to the instructions of my sheikh. To be honest, I really have to give him a lot of credit. Due to his instructions, a lot of people went to school. They were homeschooled. They were raised in little villages where it took a village to raise a child. They were raised in these villages. We attended homeschool. We graduated high school, and now I know a lot of people who have actually graduated university. They're married, they're successful, they have children, they have cars. They don't have children, they have cars, they have homes, they have lives. They are going on to teach others, and I want to say that it was due to his, his foresight, or it was just an excellent idea, a very excellent idea, alhamdulillah. And I'm glad. You're so loud. But anyway, I feel honored and very blessed to have been a part of this entire journey and this homeschooling and this educational background. it's just, it feels like such a blessing, and I can't really express in words. But for the people who know what I'm talking about, you know how they say, for those who know, it's just an experience that you can never really understand until you've gone through it, and it's a very good experience, and it's humbling, and Allah be thanked that I can say I'm part of it. And it's time for me to end this video before I get all extra emotional, and I will see you all inshallah in the next vlog. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.